You're listening to Always Building.
All right, welcome to Always Building. I'm extremely excited to have Martin Smith, my good friend Martin Smith, on this episode, and we're going to dive into some really fun stuff. So I like to kind of start this out by just asking you, Martin, a little bit about your journey thus far, what you've gotten into in the past, and we'll talk a little bit about the future in a little bit. But if you could just kind of fill us in on your background, where you're coming from, location-wise, education-wise, career-wise, everything else, man. Just give us the journey.
Cool. That's a long story. I'm going to try to keep it as briefish as I can, but I think I have to give you some of the background history on it to know where I am now. You kind of have to look back pretty deep into where I've been. So, in terms of, I've always kind of been an entrepreneur in my spirit. I was the kid selling candy in school. It's like that's always been a thing, right? So I always kind of had a business interest going on. But when I got to college, around sophomore year at the University of Michigan. So you ask where I am here in Michigan in the US. And I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad school, and I stayed in Ann Arbor, and that's where I live right now. And it's, 20 something years down the line, and I'm still here. But sophomore year was when you have to declare your major and figure out what you're actually going to do. And I had no idea. I really loved philosophy at the time, and I was planning on going into law. And, but I asked my philosophy teacher, well, what can you major in if you get a degree in philosophy? No, not what can you major in. What can you do if you major in philosophy and get a degree in philosophy other than teach philosophy? And then he was like, teach philosophy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe not so much for that. And so I ended up going into the business school here at the University of Michigan. So I got an undergrad degree in business. I went back because I was already on the law path and thought that's where I was going. Got my law degree right after that, but always had business interests kind of on the side. I started DJing that same year, my second year in school where I was declaring my major. I started DJing. That was a long time ago. We won't say what year it actually was, but I almost said it. And I was like, nah, we'll keep that to ourselves. But, I started DJing, and I love that. And I started to kind of make my name as a DJ. And the way that I really got started was putting DJing and marketing together. So I wasn't just DJing events. I was also doing a pretty decent job of promoting them. Then I started to bring sponsors in, corporate sponsors, and we did some fun stuff like having, a video game party at the, and video games weren't what they are now, right? It's like way more of a huge, ridiculous industry. It always was big, but not like it is now. But we would have a video game party at the sports bar, right? So you had all these TVs around the room, and we set up consoles on them and had a DJ party going on at the same time. So I was able to do fun stuff like that. That's how I got started. I moved forward, started opening up for some really big artists, and leaned heavily into DJing after I finished law school. Opened up for Beyonce, Jay-Z separately, before they were married. But yeah, Beyonce and Jay-Z, Eminem, Fat Joe, Big Sean, J. Cole, Dave Chapelle, Snoop Dogg, and many of the biggest names at that time, and still, icons right now as it comes to, rap and hip hop. So I got to a point where I was like, look, I can do this as a career. And then I started to tour overseas. And I realized that wasn't the lifestyle for me. So that was kind of like, no, okay. Well, and it wasn't, it's not like I was just partying too hard and getting going crazy. It really was the traveling lifestyle. I enjoy travel, but it's grueling to travel for as right? I don't know if you've shared this with your audience how much, but to be in and out of a city every day and be on, especially when you're just kind of getting to that level, you don't have all of the amenities that you don't get all of the special. Somebody's paying for you to travel, right? So that's amazing. You get to travel the world on somebody else's dime, but to get into a city, be there for 5 hours, barely be able to have a chance to eat, take a shower, go maybe sit down for a couple minutes, perform, and then you're off to the next city on the next trip. For me, I'm a Midwestern, slower living kind of person. So after a couple of weeks of that, I was like, I need to go sit down somewhere, right? And I just knew in my spirit that it wasn't for me. Because all my friends who were also in the industry were like, I've been sitting down too long. I got to get back out on the road, right? And it was the complete opposite. So I said, let me lean into this marketing. I really love this. I love what I'm doing. And so for the past 10 to 15 years, I've been running a digital agency, right? In various shapes or forms, doing some social media stuff. That was probably the earliest parts, was really social media engagement, because at the time, people knew music and celebrities, which they still are also, but they knew them for being the trailblazers in social media. It was all about what's Justin Bieber doing and what's Lady Gaga doing and how did they get millions of fans? And then brands wanted the same thing. So to have a music industry background and having management and a little bit of celebrity status at the time, it made it easier to close those early social media clients. And over time, that just moved forward into more so lead generation, into some web stuff, and just all around, mainly paid digital ads and demand generation, I'll say, more so than just social media and just web stuff and graphic design. On that side, we were more so, how do we help companies grow, really growth marketing? And that's what I've been in solidly for close to the last 10 years. But in comes COVID-19, and I get this opportunity to start DJing again, and I get to do it from my basement. Right. So I can rock for people all over the world, and I'm in my basement studio, and I get to bring that to the table. So right now I have actually transitioned and kind of flip-flopped. Right. I realized that I'm actually more valuable as a DJ who's a great marketer than I was as a marketer who's a great DJ. Like that. It didn't work as well that way. So flip-flopping those around, I've been able to create some opportunities with some amazing companies that keep coming back, and some companies that honestly, from a marketing standpoint, I was never able to work with unless it was outsourced from a much bigger, larger agency. Right. So now with the DJ gigs, I am working with clients like Nike and Google, and let's see, GitLab is one of my biggest clients. So anybody who's a developer, you know GitLab. But I can go on and on and on and list out those companies, Campbell's, and let me see, a Cisco, and a lot of big, huge companies. I don't know where they fall in terms of, I know they're all billion-dollar plus companies, but just working with companies that are multinational, that's really my focus, because I think the most value that I bring to the table is being able to engage audiences that are all around the world and bring them together on a 1-hour stream where I'm here DJing and playing music and taking requests, and we just create an amazing party. So, and I've been able to actually create those relationships through outreach, a lot of cold email, some LinkedIn, manual stuff on LinkedIn, as well as, some automated outreach through LinkedIn, and some creating landing pages and personalizing things there. And I know we might dig into that a little bit more, but, I'm just excited to be able to, one, be back doing more of the pieces of what I love. So, because it's not like I was like, oh, I'm leaving this marketing thing that I was really only doing for money, and I just jumped into this my real passion over here. It's really more so I loved all of it. So it's good to feel whole, because I feel like I'm doing all of the things that I love.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Well, it's a huge, you're right. It's a huge background here, huge experience. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of people listening, especially if they're kind of like on their first step or 10th step or 20th step, it's like listening to somebody like you that has such a rich background. It's really, it's just like exciting to hear about. So you mentioned a couple things. I think, we'll kind of zoom into a couple things and just kind of get some details on it. I don't want to dig too much into the past because I know, it's just some of that stuff. I'm sure you're just, you're beyond at this moment. But I mean, some of it is interesting to connect together. Like, obviously, you were the entrepreneur selling candy in school. That's that's that beginning. Just you were like, wanting to build stuff, getting out there and doing stuff right from the get-go. Like always, just kind of seems like you just took a lot of action in your life. You weren't like sitting, waiting for something to happen. You were out there like actually like doing the work, doing something, anything to get out there. and you also have like a law degree, and so you've passed the bar, and you've done all this, studying as well, which also, like, in the entrepreneur world is kind of funny. A lot of people like don't do well in school. It's sort of this like trope, right? That like entrepreneurs, kind of struggle in school and they don't do well in school, and then they kind of like go in this thing. So you're kind of the opposite in that sense, right? You're kind of like you did really well in school, it seems like. Is that true? Did you like excel in school and kind of fit in school pretty well and stuff like that, and just kind of the entrepreneur bug was just something in the background that was just tugging at you, or did it kind of work a little differently for you in that sense?
So, I mean, that's a real good question. Let's get into the real version, not the Instagram version of life, right? So yes, I did go and I got, my undergrad degree and then went back to law school. I did okay in law school. I will say I wasn't completely focused on it. Like in law school, it's a grind, a serious grind to try and pull out the top grades, because everybody wants to graduate as the top of their class from the law school or whatever, because that is what's going to help you land those interviews and get those big jobs that get you the big paycheck. Right. Mm-hmm. For me, by the time I was in law school, I already had my own business interests and I was going the entertainment route. So my plan was to come out and be an entertainment attorney because I thought that would fit with my background. But when I got into law school, I realized that, especially in Michigan, there was no entertainment program, right? There was very little entertainment in the state of Michigan that actually happens. You would need to be in New York or Miami or somewhere else in the United States that has more of that's more of a center for entertainment. So I kind of just went through law school. I got my mainly B's, right? A couple A's here and there, a C here and there. It's like I wasn't excelling. I wasn't like the best student there, but I wasn't trying to be.
I see.
I wasn't spending, if somebody else was spending 20 hours there in the library studying, I was like, let me give a good 12, and just go in and get a grasp for the material. But I was doing it for myself more than I was doing it to try and beat everybody else out. So, so that's that piece of it. But down the road, there's plenty of times where I've questioned, did I really need to go through all of that school and spend all of that time? And knowing what I know now, I would be much better off just grabbing a couple courses and getting in and implementing some stuff. There's so much, the stuff you put out on YouTube alone, and you grab that in your cold email course and you've got, you really got an MBA in being able to get out there and do it. And you're going to learn so much more just by just getting your hands dirty and getting out there and doing it. So for me, I think for a lot of years, I was kind of spinning my wheels. So from the outside looking in, yes, I was quote unquote successful. I was able to support myself. I was able to support my family doing what I do and enjoying it. But I working some crazy hours, right? Not able to get away from it when I really want, when I want to take a vacation, I have to like plan for a week to be able to get away for a week just to make sure that, everything doesn't fall apart while I'm gone. All of that kind of stuff happened too. So yes, I've had a, 6-figure plus agency for, I don't know how long, but that's not really all that much in the grand scheme of things. Right.
Right.
So yeah, like to really dig into it, things have gone well and I've had some success. But I only now feel like I'm really hitting my stride to take things to the next level. And probably the biggest thing that I was doing wrong was having too much on my plate. It was easy. It felt like a good thing. It felt like stability, because if you got like 7 different revenue streams that you can lean on, then if any one of them drops out, you've got another one to kind of go back to go to and scale that one up. But now having all of my eggs in this virtual DJ kind of basket. And so I still have clients in my agency, and we've cut some clients that just weren't really a great fit. We were kind of keeping them on just because they're paying and we're doing the work. Right. So we've gotten rid of that, and I'm narrowing it down, to the people that we can best serve. But I'm not looking for growth in the marketing agency. I have my team actually working with me to grow this virtual space and the things that are happening now. So that focus just being able to focus, and everything that I do is lifting that, right? That boat is just lifting. Every time I pour some more water in, it lifts up, it lifts up, it lifts up, rather than like lift this one and then lift that one. And then it goes up a little bit and then it's down and it's up and it's down, right? That's how things used to be. And so it's much harder to get ahead when you're focused on 7 different things at the same time than it is if you just are focusing really solidly on one thing.
Well, it's become kind of a theme of this podcast already. Actually, I think everyone's going to see in the episodes that, simplicity and really simplicity and focus, are like these two, just like benchmark, these two kind of golden eggs or whatever. I don't even know what the term to put, but just it's like they're very virtuous in this business stuff or in this life stuff, just to have like simplicity in your life and focus in your life. And you're just able to scale that as big or as small or what, it doesn't really matter what you do with that, but it just makes your life so much easier and so much better. So it's something I'm definitely getting from the podcast. It's just this like, almost oversimplification of things is like the best possible thing you can do. So I'm really glad you touched on that. So, and also, real quick, I just wanted to ask you a question too, because I know you have an awesome daughter, and kids and a family and all that stuff. When did all that happen in that trajectory, man? Like when did you sort of, when did you and your wife get together and have your child and everything like that? And kind of what were you doing at that time? Because I think that's also something that I'm really curious about in your kind of story, because having, a kid and having a family and all that stuff, it changes, your mindset a lot, I think, like when you're doing this kind of stuff, especially as an entrepreneur. So kind of curious about that one, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So my wife and I have been together for quite a while. So I think we are approaching about 15 years now of us being, since like meeting each other. But we had our daughter, we got, married. Took us a while before we got to marriage. And that is what, about 7 years ago, 6 years, between 6 to 7 years. And then our daughter just turned 5. So
amazing.
And I am in my early 40s. But getting towards 40 really was what got me to be more serious. Cause I think in my 30s, I was kind of feeling like I was living the life a little bit. I was still DJing, but though not at the level that I was before, but I could still kind of roll around and just walk right past the line into places. And I was getting treated like a local celebrity, really. So there was that. Sure. And then I felt like, okay, I'm making 6 figures in my digital agency. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like everything was kind of felt gravy a little bit until I realized that, okay, wait a minute, hold up. Now I have a family and I'm having a kid, and the whole world came into perspective. Yeah. And it kind of changed what I was looking at and how I was viewing things, and said, wait a minute, I really don't have anything. I need to get this together. Right. Yeah. And so that was, that definitely was a turning point, having my daughter and realizing that I want more for my family was, helped me to focus. And even, just getting towards and then turning 40, that was a huge point where it's like, okay, it's time to get serious now. Right. And so that's where I am in my life. And I feel blessed to be able to be where I am right now, because I didn't see it coming. Yeah. But I really want to share some of the things that happened to me, kind of happened to me. It's like, and I know they say luck is when, opportunity meets preparation. So, and that definitely is the case, right? I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now if I hadn't been DJing for 20 some years, right? So I gave it away, I'll tell you. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. So what makes me special is I am DJing, and then I'm also talking to people and taking requests over, chat. I'm looking at a chat screen in front of me and taking requests, playing people's requests, making jokes with them, and just creating an atmosphere all the while playing music. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I've been doing it for a really long time, to be able to say, okay, what's a great song, and just throw that in and have all of these kind of probably juggling the 7 different business interests shaped my mind in such a way that I'm able to be talking to people and pulling up songs and queuing up songs, So I'm just thankful. So yeah, I'm thankful that it all came together. And I'm also thankful for, let's put it out here, shameless, not so shameless plug, Prospecting Toolkit being a tool that helped me to be able to get in touch with lots of those businesses. I'll finish my statement. I'm so excited to move past it, but I don't know otherwise, even with the digital marketing knowledge that I had in the past, if I would have even tried to attempt to go after the companies that I'm reaching out to now, if not for finding Prospecting Toolkit, right?
Well,
because being able to go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's impressive, man. It's impressive what you've been able to do. And I mean, I think it goes beyond, obviously, you got the data and you did all that kind of that stuff, but the angles that you're taking and the approach that you're taking is really, really interesting. I think we can maybe zoom into that soon with the cold outreach and what you're doing, because I think obviously getting meetings with Nike, getting meetings with Cisco. I mean, these companies are just, like you said, they're gargantuan. I mean, they're enterprises. They're not like medium, small businesses. So I think it's gonna be really interesting for some people listening of just, I think that's also really interesting that just, going out on a limb and going for those big enterprises, with a unique value proposition. Also, you're kind of zooming in with something that has also become kind of a theme on this podcast, which is, and you're doing it through your DJ sets, is building relationships, is actually being like a person that's open, that's building relationships, that's communicating, that's like, in your DJ sets, it's like the people that are in this party, they're kind of like they're the boss, so to speak, right? And you're giving them the respect and the space that a lot of people won't do. Because I've been around DJs like my whole life, and just that whole like that thing where it's like no requests, like get back from the booth, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure yeah, it's like get the fuck back from the booth, like move away. I'm doing my thing. I'm an artist, right? It's like right. There is a bit of self-importance in that, and I think there is a bit of like, and that can be a real drag for people. Whereas like what you're doing is bringing them into the experience and that relationship building on the Nike side and the contacts you're making there, and then also on the actual building the culture of what you're doing within the actual party. There's kind of like this meta micro relationship building that you're handling that is really special, and like you said, kind of makes you unique from all the other DJs who are like not humble, not too self-important, think they're think that they're just like God in the booth, you know what I mean? So I think that's
let
really
me jump
unique.
in on this because you make a good point, and this actually ties to how marketing has influenced my DJing, right? So because of the way that my kind of DJ career has progressed, I'm not well known by any means at this point. I'm bigger than some, where a handful of people know me. Like you go to my Twitter account and I'm close to maybe 6,000 people, but other DJs that charge what I charge have 60,000 people or 600,000 people, or you know what I'm saying? So I can't compete with them based on those numbers. I don't have hit tracks that I've produced or anything like that, right, to stand on. So I needed to find something that would set me apart. And this is a Dan Kennedy thing. If anybody out there knows Dan Kennedy, direct marketer, but he talks about how, if you look at a percentage, right, you've got 90% of people, or at least, let's see, to be average, right, you need to be at 70%. So that means that 70% of people, and I would even boost it up to say 80 or up all the way up to maybe 90% of people are doing generally about the same thing, right? You look at what everybody else is doing, and then you say, okay, this is what the industry standard is. I'm going to go in and do this same thing. If you actually want to stand out or be outstanding, right? If you actually want to be extraordinary instead of just ordinary, you need to do something extra. You need to do something different. So I said, what is something that other DJs of my caliber won't do? And that is take requests, right? Just like you talked about it. It's a taboo thing. People don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. As a DJ, you think of yourself kind of like, a chef, right? So if you're at if somebody comes into a Michelin star chef, award-winning chef's restaurant, is going to come in the kitchen and tell them how to make the food. No, get out of here. What are you talking about? Get lost with that, right? So that's the same way we feel as DJs. But one thing I realized was that in a in-person venue, I'm the same way. But I can also look out at the audience. And if I play a song, I can see how they react to it, right? So I can see if heads are nodding. I can see if I'm clearing the dance floor, if people are rushing to the dance floor. So that gives me that feedback to be able to go forward and play the next song and play the next song and create a vibe that brings everybody together and create a great event, right? Virtually, I can't see people, right? So if they're not engaging with me, if I can't get them talking in the chat, I have no idea what they're doing. Are they enjoying it? Are they tuning out, right? If I just see the numbers dropping, then yeah, maybe I'll know then, but I didn't want to wait for that. So I said, it's on me to engage this audience, right? And so what can I do? Well, they care more about themselves and what they want to hear than anything that I want to play, because they don't even know me. They didn't show up because DJ Graffiti was famous. They came to check this thing out. And so I'm lucky enough to have them here. How am I going to keep them here? And so by giving them shout outs, by taking their requests, by treating them, like you said, with respect. And that's something that most other DJs just won't do because it's taboo in the DJ industry, right? So that's how the marketing all comes together. And I was like, I know that if I can do this, then now it makes me make sense. Whereas you're comparing me, if you just look on the social media aspects, look on the fame aspects, look who's in the, and I'm trying to, the next step for me is getting press, right? So getting other people to start talking about me, because at least I'll be able to, bridge the gap there. But if you look at somebody else and they put an album out and then they start they're in all these newspapers and articles and press happening about them, right? And then you look at me and then I'm just this guy, how do I level out and how do I match up with what they bring to the table? And I just created a list of these are the things I need to do, and I'm checking them off one by one and going at them directly. And guess what? I'm about to use Prospecting Toolkit to go out there and find me some journalists that I can build relationships with that are already writing about virtual events and what's going on in the metaverse and all of this stuff that I'm stepping into. And then that's how I'm going to create that opportunity, is just instead of
amazing. Well, amazing. And I love, it's really important. I think it's amazing, like starting with that kind of direct outreach, because you've got some great testimonials. It's incredible. Your testimonials are like, I don't think I've read testimonials in a while that like had that kind of like glowing vibe to them, where they're like, man, that was so fun. This dude, he takes it to the next level. You know what I mean? It's like, and so taking that and then turning that, you're creating this whole environment around. And I love what you said about having like low follower count, not having the followers that these folks have, but you have the social proof and you have once you build that press around you, it's like, what do people get when they search your name? What do people start to see when they vet you, right? Because you're reaching out going, hey, like, this department in Reebok or whatever, or Nike, hey guys, I can do this event. And then it's like, okay, DJ Graffiti. And then they start to see, hey man, this guy like hypes up the thing. This is, and I love, let's dive in a little bit into like the value proposition real quick on the DJing too, because I think this is really interesting for people listening. Like, I think a lot of people, like you said, the Dan Kennedy example is perfect, because it's like people feel like they have to go out, copy the thing that's working or whatever. They feel like they just have to go out and like become like a carbon copy of whatever's out there working. And the value that you're bringing is so multi-tiered, and you're doing something kind of, obviously for this audience, maybe there's some hobbyist DJs that are listening to this, but I'm not sure anybody's really pursuing it. This is like an interesting path that you've been on that's led you to this. But the value proposition of these companies, I'm curious to kind of explore into that. Like, I know there's some like culture building for the teams in the company. There's like morale boosting. I'm curious to kind of into the psychology a little bit of like what you see as the value proposition, because a lot of people are coming, like they skip the most obvious thing right in front of their face. Like they're good at something and they don't know how to translate that into a value proposition. So it's like DJing and tech companies don't generally, like, we don't hear about these intersecting very often, but I'd love to hear kind of what you think about just sort of the value proposition and like what your energy and interactivity brings to these companies and things like that.
I'm actually learning that more day by day, because the biggest thing that I know about the DJing is that there's something more there, right? And so I'm trying to actually, that's part of the reason why I'm reaching out for so many testimonials, is because I want other people to put that into words in ways that I may not be able to, right? But at its core, yes, I am DJing for people. I'm providing entertainment services, but I think the bigger value is I've started to see that I'm more like a motivational speaker than I am a DJ, right? So
yes.
And if you know anything about public speaking, that's another area that people don't like to be put into the motivational speaker bucket, right? Because that means that your content is lackluster usually. Because when you see a motivational speaker, you go there, you watch them, you may leave with one catchphrase or something like that that leaves in your head, but by tomorrow the motivation is gone, right? And it kind of fizzles away, and then you need some more motivation, right? But if somebody's really delivering some content and they're dropping gems on you and, you know, hitting you with jewels, then you can take that and go have something to implement into your life. But that's not really my purpose, right? People don't really bring a DJ in to give the key content. I am opening up for lots of conferences, and that's part of the value. So there'll be conferences, sales kickoffs. Sometimes it's just internal parties just to celebrate the team. Sometimes there are parties to celebrate, you know, key clients where we just want to bring all of our clients in and make sure they have an amazing time. So all of those are the different types of, it's mainly corporate, right? But all of those are the different types of events that I'm doing. But the value, there's something more than that. During this time with COVID, there was racial unrest going on here in the US, and just all this kind of stuff has been like heavily weighing people down. And now it's just general work and life and balancing all of that kind of stuff. We've all got a lot on our shoulders and we need to relax, right? You need to have a release to be able to come in as your best self. And I think there's a mental health aspect to it that I'm just learning about more and more, where just in general, if you look into how they treat certain illnesses, they treat it with music, right? They'll play music for people that are going through certain types of dementia and different things, and it brings them back to a place where, you know, they're coherent and they're able to, you know, so there's so much going on there where it's just opening people up to just being the best of themselves and being able to present their whole self, to be whole, to be healthy. And I never thought about that at all, you know, coming into this, but I'm seeing that that's a major component. And that's something that companies are investing in and know they need to, especially now that there's so much more work from home going on, because there's not a separation between work. You know, usually that was an entrepreneurial thing, you know, when you were an entrepreneur or you were at a certain level and you're just a workaholic, right? And you didn't have separation between work and life because, you know, that's just how it was. Right. But now so many more people are getting that because they work from home. And so now their laptop is there all the time and people know they're there. And so they can be reached at any given time. So they now have to be taught how to have separation, just like most of the people on this call. Like, you probably working around the clock. Sometimes when you get excited about something, you get on your grind, you're just heavy into it. And then you realize, well, man, I've been running myself crazy for the last 3 or 4 days. I'm not quite at the same peak that I would be at if I actually went to sleep, you know, if I actually went and chilled and got away from things a little bit, you know. That's the value proposition.
I love it, man. No, I love it. You know, and it's just something that I think, again, too, it's a lesson in exploring like the ICP to, you know, the ideal client profile and understanding that, because it's like, you know, it's so easy to kind of, you know, focus on those surface level things. I mean, you got to get started somewhere, right? So it's just figuring out, okay, you know, obviously it's entertainment. Obviously, there's a bit of team building and a bit of like camaraderie and people kind of like feeling like they're a part of something, especially like you're saying in the post-COVID thing, everyone's separated. They're feeling, like you said too, I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because yeah, a lot of people listening are going to resonate with that. I know I resonate like with that crazy, because, you know, it's like just being that entrepreneur, you know, like outsourcing stuff, you know, having like VAs, having employees, but you're not actually meeting with them. Like, that's been my life for so long. It's almost like, you know, you kind of forget that other people are like missing the office, because it's like, nah, I've been doing this forever, right? But that, like, yeah, that kind of having to sort of connect those dots and bring people together, and then bringing in the mental health aspect. Now it starts going beyond the surface. Now you're actually, it's therapy. I mean, you're acting as some level of therapy and mental health, you know, kind of relaxation and opening up and just being a person again, so to speak, with all the things that are going on. It just I think it's good inspiration for anybody listening, just to go and look at your ICP, look at who you're selling to, and try to dive into what are those like beyond the surface things that you are doing for them. Like, maybe you're doing marketing for them, maybe you're doing you know, sales copywriting for them. It may go a lot deeper, the emotions that these people, you know, that you're actually dealing with these people, right? And so I think that's really, really you know, really intriguing actually to hear about. So we can dive in. I think I wanted to dive in a little bit into your your cold email approach a little bit of getting these companies, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of like, because one thing I've been noticing about cold email, man, is it's really good. Obviously, it's great for sales when you know who you're targeting and you're going after them like laser pointed, getting them on the phone and stuff. But there's also this other aspect of cold email and sort of like this cold outreach thing where it's great for market research, right? It's great to just sort of like test the waters in some different spaces to kind of say, hey, where am I getting replies? Is this resonating? I'm changing. I have a couple of ideas. I've talked to a couple of people now. I'm kind of just going out there and sending some emails out. And I'm kind of curious, like with your approach to getting with, these bigger companies and stuff like that, was that like, did that start as kind of like an experiment, as a test, or was that something that you were very like intentful that obviously you had done it before, in some sense, bringing the DJing and the marketing together. But I'm curious, like when you went out there and just kind of started blasting out, manual emails to these guys in these departments, that was this more of like a market research kind of test that you were doing that sort of started to evolve into something that actually, you were like, whoa, this has momentum? Or was it something that was a little more laser targeted that you already had, in your mind?
I think so my very first virtual client was Duo Security, which had recently been acquired by Cisco, right? So that was what opened the door to me working with Cisco. And so Duo Security, let's see. They asked me to DJ an event after just seeing me, because I had several of the people in the company that I was friends with on social media, and I was just jumping on Facebook and YouTube and playing streams just for any fans of mine, friends, family, everybody to just jump on, because that's what DJs were doing in the pandemic. And so they were my very first client. And after seeing that event where I think they might have 5 different offices throughout the world, where they're in one in Australia, one in London, several in the US. They might have one in another country, maybe one in Canada or something like that. So, but just I saw how I was able to communicate with different people that were in separate countries. And I realized that was a key point of value that was coming to the table, because and then also after that event, one of the testimonials that they got was from a staff member that had always been remote. It was a contractor that wasn't a full-time, or may have been a full-time employee, but at least was a contractor and not a actual employee of the company. And he said, for the first time, I feel like a real member of the team, because everybody was in the same experience that he was in, right? Before, he felt left out because everybody was at the office and they're getting all the perks and they're involved in all this stuff. And you get to see it on social media and hear it on Slack and how people are enjoying this, right? But then you're always feeling like you're on the outside looking in. But at this point, everybody was in the chat, communicating, partying together. And so I was like, wow, that's special. So as the whole idea of remote work started to grow, I was like, I need to go after companies that have people that are spread out all over the place and also that are remote. And I also said, wait a minute, I'm able to charge as much as I am for, my bigger events that I'm doing here. And I'm able to do it from my basement without a whole lot of the setup and taking all that kind of stuff that I have to do for a normal event. Usually if I go to fly across the country, it's taking me days to travel, is set up and getting equipment and sourcing all this stuff. And that's when I would get paid my big dollars. But I can do that in my basement. Okay, well, I need to go to companies that can actually afford to pay me at that level and don't flinch at my prices. Right. So that is what caused me to go after the enterprise companies, because I was like, I know they have the budget. And so the way that I actually did it was from there. And a key point that I want to make is the fact that, so it's cold email. And I've always gone after reaching out to people that I, don't have a relationship with, but I'm always looking for something to bridge the gap. Right. So my best cold email campaign was one where I reached out to alumni of the University of Michigan that were executives at companies that I wanted to then get in touch with. Right. So I went through Prospecting Toolkit, and because of LinkedIn, I can see who's been to a certain school. Right. And so I pulled all of those folks and created my cold email campaign and said, hey, I'm an alumni of U of M, and then I went into my whole spiel about I've been doing events with companies like this, this, and this. And to get into more of my script that I send out, It usually starts out with a compliment or some point to connect the dots, right? So I give like one sentence that's going to really connect with them and resonate with them. Then the second paragraph is social proof, right? Where I come in and I say, I've been working with this company and this company and this company and this company, and I've opened up in person for this artist, this artist, this artist, this artist. And then my third paragraph is where I go into my ask. And usually I do a kind of a lightweight ask. I'm not going out like, do you need a DJ? It's usually more so like, my exact thing was I created a video and I was sending it out to them. So I was like, can I share this link to the video with you? I created a personalized video for you. Can I share the link? And so from there, some people get back, some don't. But I think what was special about that campaign and why it worked so well is that the videos that I did create, I created about a 15-minute DJ set. The first 1 to 2 minutes, I personalized it for 30 companies that I really love their brand and, enjoyed what they do and had some sort of connection to the brand. So my intro was like, in one company I'm actually talking to right now, not so much about DJ gigs, but my outreach to them, which is Dropbox. I use Dropbox all the time. That's where all of my music is stored in Dropbox so that if my computer goes down, I can just grab another copy from Dropbox and load it up on another computer. But now they actually nominated me internally for a Dropbox Award, right? For like top creative or whatever for my use of Dropbox. And so my little initial video was like, hey, I use Dropbox to save my life, so on and so forth. I would really love to party with you. Let me show you what it's going to look like when we get together and party. And right. So that was my intro that then led into a DJ video. And that DJ video from beyond that intro, it was the same for all the 30 companies. But I put that 1 minute segment on the front that was personalized for them. And then I put their logo over the top of the entire video. So they felt everybody who watches it thinks I made a 15-minute video just for them. And so having that, sending it out through cold email, that's what created relationships with Google, with Nike. I'm trying to see, with Dell.
Wow.
It was actually Dell and Intel together on that event. And then the Nike event was actually Nike, Converse, and Jordan brand together on that event. So like all those relationships came out of cold email. And I'm sure there's some more that I'm forgetting that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, that's how that happened.
Oh man, so the formula is great. And I think for anybody listening, it's just like epic to listen to this because what you're doing. I mean, and you're giving so much value up front, man. I mean, you're showing them the level that the level that you operate at. You're personalizing, and everything is so relevant in that email. I love how you found the university, connection that you had some common ground that you created in that first sentence. Then you were going into social proof and basically just saying, hey, I've done this before. I've worked with these companies. I'm not new to this. And then you're going, hey, I made this personalized thing, and you're giving some value up front. And this is something that's just so, especially when reaching out to like enterprise customers. And I think, you're seeing success with it. It's just like, giving that value up front and being willing to just put it out there, right? And like put some work in on the front end to get some huge opportunities on the back end. And you had mentioned that you've been, one thing I wanted to zoom in, now that we've kind of done that, I think that's a really, really, that should be valuable for anybody listening. If you want to like rewind on that a couple times, rewind on that section, please, because it's going to help you in the long run. One thing that you mentioned earlier too is that people keep coming back, and that was really exciting to hear about. The kind of the retention aspect of this, because I don't know if we can directly attribute it to that personalized video, but there's something, besides obviously the actual experience and the deliverable and what you're doing in the DJ sets, combined with that personalized outreach and that work that you put in on the front end. I'm curious, like what you see as sort of that recipe for success that kind of keeps bringing people back, because I think that's also something that people forget about. You know what I mean? When putting the value up front, they kind of, sometimes it seems like, oh man, yeah, well, I'm going to get like one job out of this and then I'm going to have to do this again and again and again. No, you keep getting these repeats from these same people. And I wanted to kind of like maybe dive in a little bit on what you think about just sort of retention and repeat customers and, how that's operating for you.
Yeah. So I think the reason that people keep coming back is really just the experience of the DJ set. Is I'm starting to see analytics and numbers from the sets themselves, and from the last couple bigger clients that I did events for told me it was 90% of people from their company that were invited showed up to the event. Right. So One company actually told me after they just had it was a celebration for their public launch, right? So their IPO happened, and then I did the virtual celebration right after their IPO happened that day. They were,
Wow.
everybody's watching them listed on NASDAQ. And then,
Shit, man.
I did the party after that, and I got 91% of those people to come and join that stream. So it's just, there's something about it that is just so exciting. And I've done many events with them in the past. So it probably wasn't that high at first, but I've maybe done 20 something events for that company, leading up to that point. So people kind of know what to expect, and they're excited about it, and they're talking about it. But it's just, you have to know when you create a great experience for someone, you need to continue to build that relationship and continue to pour into that relationship. Don't have a great experience, get a testimonial, and move on, right? Make sure, find out what's next, right? And keep that door open. And mainly it's about helping them create solutions to whatever their pain points are, right? So I think that happens to, if anybody who's a business owner that has several different categories of things that they offer, even if it's all in the same kind of bucket, you always end up with this, you hearing about a client of yours that had a great experience who goes to somebody else for the exact service that you offer. And it's because your relationship wasn't strong enough for them to know you did that thing, and they would have gladly come to you and save themselves a lot of time and energy of going to find somebody else. But you didn't stay in contact. You didn't, cross sell your stuff, and you didn't build that relationship strong enough. So for me, what that looks like right now is, I know I'm working in these enterprise companies. I'm usually at some of the companies it's top down, where I'm working with, the general events for all of the whole company. But other ones, I'm working with like a small department. So they may have 20,000 employees, and I'm touching 3,000, right? So that means there's a ton of, opportunity within that company, that if I start to move laterally and start to ask for introductions to other people, and that's really where I'm wanting to build out some cold email in that space, just to say, hey, I've been doing events with such and such company. Here's a clip of the video I did for your company, right? And if you're interested in having this for, trade future shows or conferences or whatever, reach out and let's talk about it. That's going to be a huge opportunity moving forward. Yep.
Man, huge. No, this is all, it goes back to that just relationship building and putting, giving the respect. Just treating people with respect at some point, but also finding these horizontal angles, like you just mentioned, of kind of like figuring out how to sort of navigate within these things and find more opportunities. And yeah, man, people can be a little bit nervous. I think people kind of naturally get a little bit nervous about that stuff in the beginning, but it's like, man, like the value that you're adding to the thing, it's like, you want to spread the love, so to speak, right? And just like get more, get more engagement and get these people showing. That 90% plus show up rate is just insane, man. That's, by the way, kudos on that. That's just incredible. And having metrics also, I think that you can mention like that, right, is super helpful going forward, right? Because that's like something that they're just not getting engagement. It's like you know their pain points, man. Again, I think it's going back to that ICP. It's going back to just knowing, the pain points that you're actually solving for, and just like in the practice, it seems like you're learning so much every day. Every time you do this, you're just like getting more and more insights on, what you're actually doing for these companies and all this stuff. So it's really just all that intelligence kind of like compounds, and the interest starts to compound, and everything goes forward, right? I wanted to ask you a direct question, man. That's maybe a little bit philosophical, which also I think plays back into your philosophy background, which I'm really interested. I was really, really intrigued by that. I'm not going to dive into that one, but I'm curious. Like this question, I think is something that has come up for me a lot recently, and I wanted to ask you, how much do you think passion matters? Well, obviously, we're talking about business a little bit here, but how much do you think passion matters in terms of building something sustainable, something that makes money, obviously, first off, because we all need money and we all need to survive. But just how much do you think like passion actually plays into this whole thing? And I guess that's the question. how do you see passion in this equation, and versus just making money, or just learning a skill, or et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. I happen to be in a place where I have never been, I can't think of a time outside of, my jobs that I had when I was in my teenage years, like my 15 and 16, that I didn't have some sort of passion for what I was doing. Right. So there's plenty of times where DJing related or marketing related, I wasn't passionate about everything, right? that was going on. I might've been DJing an event that I was like, okay, I'm doing this for the money. Right. And but I still loved the DJing, and I had a passion for the DJing and a passion for entertaining people. Right. And there were times during the marketing where I didn't love the grunt work I had to do on a certain angle of it, but I can sit around thinking about marketing and talking about marketing strategies and ideas and, just the wins that you get through marketing, that fuels me. I'm passionate about that. So I think to answer your question, I think it's very important that you are doing something that you are passionate about. If you are passionate about something else other than what you're doing, then you need to probably pivot and find a way to work that passion into it, because that's when you just won't want to do the thing, right? You're going to get to a point where I just don't want to do this. I don't like doing this. I'm upset about the fact, internally, subconsciously, your brain is going to tell you, don't do it. Don't be successful, because you don't want to be doing that thing, right? So you need to have some element of passion in there, but I don't know that it necessarily, if you're passionate about cooking, that doesn't mean, just drop everything. Your only job is to be a chef. It's like you could do something else that relates to cooking, or, and maybe still be fulfilled in that. Right. So yeah, I think this goes to a spiritual standpoint for me, because my faith is a big part of who I am. And I believe that we all have, a gift that's put inside of us in that direction. The reason that you're passionate about that is because you have a special gift in that area. Right. So you're actually working against the grain to not be involved with doing that gift. So yeah, don't die unfulfilled because you chose to try and go make money over here instead of doing what you're passionate about. Figure out how you can make money in something that is aligned with what you're passionate about. I think that's generally what I would advise people to.
That's so helpful, man. And I think it's helpful for me as well, man. And I think the faith aspect too is really is so important, man. I mean, whether you're religious or not, or whatever the situation is, it's like, I read this quote the other day that kind of blew my mind, man. And it was, I'll share it real quick. That it was, and I don't know exactly verbatim, but it was something along the lines of, if you don't have complete, utter 100% confidence and faith in yourself, then you're insulting God, you're insulting the creator, in that sense. Right. And so I think it kind of, and that really hit me. I was like, wow, that's actually super insightful, because, that's going against the passion, and that's going against what you're naturally inclined to do. Right. And it's just so you're insulting your own, a perfect creator, basically, in this amazing thing that you're in, by not having just that unbelievable, unmoving confidence, in yourself, because you are God as well, right? We're all like part of this. So it's really that kind of hit me, man, where I was like, wow, it made me kind of like really have to sit there and just kind of rethink and ponder that quote a little bit, and just think about life a little bit. So I'm glad we got into that a little bit. I think the passion, it's definitely a spiritual thing. It's definitely a just a really deep thing to think about, that passion is just, and it's one of those things, I believe, that you have to have some level of passion in it too. I believe the same thing. It's like, if you don't have the passion in it, when things get hard, you stop, right? You quit. It's so easy to quit when you don't have that thing behind you that's going, no, I love this. I love what I'm doing. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to find a way to, and with you, I think it's really interesting actually in your journey too, because, you shared the stage with Jay-Z and Beyonce and Dave Chapelle, one of my favorites of all time. You know what I mean? Eminem, Fat Joe, all these guys, you shared the stage with these guys, but you didn't go that route. You found another way to do what you're passionate about. One of the things you're passionate about, and do it in a really meaningful way for you. It's supporting your family. So it's like, it's financially stable and helping you in that way. But you found a way to kind of pivot, because I know what you mean about the touring, man. I mean, go back on that a second, man. I know exactly what you're saying. Cause touring is it's so hard, man. It's so terrible. Like when you're not in that mindset, when you're just kind of like, in the beginning, it can be kind of like, oh, And then, also fame, I think is a double-edged sword for a lot of people. A lot of people, can't, it's just not like the natural thing, you know what I mean? That you want to be doing. You want to be unique. You want to be an artist, but and you want to make people happy and you want to be fulfilled, but you don't want to necessarily have to like hop on planes and go do this whole hustle all the time, you know what I mean, and do that. So you found a way to kind of go, hey, look, I know myself, I know what I want to be doing, more or less. Like, so I'm going to try to, through that journey, you kind of pivoted and found a way, a creative way, I must say as well, to kind of funnel that creativity and that passion, and everything that you have in this, into something that's sustainable. So it's huge, man. It's absolutely huge. And really, on that note, I want to kind of move into something that also has become kind of a staple of this podcast that is kind of a debatable topic, man. Again, like the passion, I think, scaling. So scaling is something that is pushed out there by gurus. Everybody's talking about scaling. Everything has to be infinitely scalable. Everything has to be, obviously I agree there needs to be a big total addressable market involved. You need to do your research on what you're doing a little bit, just to know that, okay, like there's enough customers out here to, sustain me for the long term and for this thing to grow. But in terms of like scaling, as this like go-to thing, like, I immediately want to scale employees and have a big organization and be doing all these kinds of things. And again, goes back to your spinning like 7 dishes kind of thing, you know what I mean? Where you're just handling all these things and scaling. I'm curious on your thoughts on like, on what you're doing and the future of what you're doing and how you see scale in what you're doing, or if you see scale in what you're doing, or how you kind of plan on sort of the future of what you're doing here with the DJing for the events and the virtual events and everything like this.
Yeah, so that is a great question, amazing question, because for me in the past, I always jumped too early to think about scaling, right? That was something from a digital standpoint when I started building out lead gen sites. Right. I got one lead gen site and it started to work. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm building out 50 lead gen sites. And then I dropped the ball on that project before I ever really got it live, because I should have done one lead gen site. And then maybe I should have said, okay, let's do 3 more and get those up and get those operating. And then but I was like, all right, one worked. Let's do 50 at the same time, right? And so in needing to create content for 50 and do copy for 50 and drop backlinks for 50 and all of that kind of stuff, it got tedious, it got crazy, and then I just dropped the ball and didn't fulfill that, right? So I tried to get to scale too early. Yeah. And that's just really, one story to talk about many stories of similar things that has happened over time where I don't feel like I got to the full potential of things that I was doing because I didn't take it step by step, and so I think there is, you can lose by not scaling, right? There's definitely places where I kept it too small and then somebody else came and kind of took over that larger piece of the pie before I got a chance to step into it. And I should have scaled. I should have thought bigger. But more often than not, I tried to scale too quickly and didn't have all of my, ducks in a row to make that happen, and ended up not getting to the full extent of what was possible with that idea or with that business. And so when it comes to this DJing thing, I have one goal right now, one North Star, and that's a set number of events per week. That's all I'm focused on right now, right? Everything that I'm doing has to be something that is, a critical piece of the path of where I'm trying to go in terms of creating a certain number of events per week, right? And for me right now, that's 4 events per week. Now, there's plenty of weeks that I do, and that's 4 1-hour events generally on average per week. There are plenty of weeks that I do more than 4. There are weeks that I do 7 events, but there's still weeks that I do 0 events, right? So I want, and I'm not to my average of 4 yet, right? So once I get to my average of 4 weeks, then that's when I'm going to change that goal and put it to a different place. However, I've already been thinking about scale. I know once I get to the point of having 4 on average, there's going to be way more, interest than I can't handle from a DJ perspective, that people wanting the type of entertainment I'm providing. So I'm already grooming a few other entertainers and DJs to be able to pick up some of that overflow that's there. But for me, I'm starting to kind of curate entertainment experiences that may or may not have anything to do with DJing, but I'm realizing that those enterprise companies, they just enjoy having all of the work kind of done for them and having something that's ready to go set in front of them. So I'm able to leverage some of my entertainment contacts to bring in bigger name celebrities. So now it's not just DJ Graffiti, the guy we don't know. DJ Graffiti is actually the connect to help us get to these people that we really do know. And all of that can just be handled in one go, right? So there's so many different ways that I can go. But the easiest is just going to be continuing on the same path and adding more entertainers to the mix, because I know at some point I'm going to be at a place where I'm like, okay, I don't really want to do this as much, or maybe I don't even want to do this anymore. Now I've got an agency in a sense that we are the ones who do the lead generation. We bring in the business, and then we have people that we funnel that to. And so there's multiple ways that I'm looking to grow this. And then, even beyond that, I'm looking for other opportunities once that path is, because here, let's take a step back. Sure. The real thing that I'm building is a series of, or a, pool of relationships with people in certain places. So at corporations, with people that are event producers and event planners that might be at agencies that they then throw, events for corporations, and and anything else that falls into that bucket, right? So once those relationships are built, it doesn't matter what the product is, as long as this has something to do with events and corporations, right? I can help that process move forward, right? So some down the road, I'm also looking at acquisitions and or taking a piece of a company that might need to get through the door, and reach that same market, right? We can help them. Great. You need marketing, you need copy, you need, website stuff, you need your value proposition dialed in, all that kind of stuff. We can help you, right? So those are the ways that right now I'm thinking about scale. But I'm sure there are even more. And actually, now that I have people's ears, I want to throw this out there. Something personally that I'm looking for along those same lines is I really enjoy the cold email piece. We're doing some, paid advertising, leaning into paid advertising and then retargeting and content marketing, right? To be able to create a flow of customers for a company. So I'm looking for very niche products or services that they want growth, right? Everybody kind of focuses in on the same set of industries, right? Where, lawyers got a lot of money, let's go after them. Oh, real estate agents, solar. When it was lead gen, it was property restoration. Because that was like the most you could get paid. It was like, you can get $500 a lead for property restoration. But it's a terrible industry. Not the property restaurants. Totally. Like the work that they're doing is great, but it's, of course, it's construction. Construction is kind of an abrasive industry. That's not my personality. I'm more of an easygoing kind of guy, and construction is like, it's a real
no doubt
manly man's industry, and like people talk kind of rough and like
automobile and all that too. Yeah, just like that.
Right. It's like, I'm just not going to let anybody talk to me like that. Right. And I don't talk to other people like that. So that wasn't for me, but it was $500 a lead. Right. So I was going to be in there, let me tell this quick story about that. I actually set up a lead gen site in property restoration and set it up so that the calls that came in, I funneled them, or I forwarded them over to a company that was in my area, and let them get 2 or 3 leads, which would have been worth at the time anywhere between $200 to $500 a piece. And then I called up the guy and said, "Hey, have you gotten any calls from my company?" And I don't know if anybody out there knows how this works, but usually you put a little thing called a whisper at the beginning of the call, and it says like, "This call is from Overflow Marketing Solutions." And then the phone rings, and then somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need property restoration." Right? So that gives the business a clue that you sent them that lead. So then when you call up and you're like, "Hey, I sent a few leads your way," usually you would think they would be like, "Oh yeah, I did get those you can send me more of those? Okay, cool. I'll pay you. Right. That's how it's supposed to go. I get on the phone with this property restoration guy and he's like, I didn't tell you to send me any calls. And I'm like, oh, Lord. I'm like, he's like barking at me and angry and saying,
oh,
I didn't tell you to send me. And he was using choice words to describe me that I won't repeat. But, but yeah, I was like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. I just let it go. And I mean, that site was probably worth thousands of dollars if I could find, but I called 5 or 6 different people and they weren't ready. You know, they just wouldn't budge on it. They were just so, you know, I don't know. But
I know some industries are like that, man. They're just brutal.
So speaking of scale, and I don't know if I actually got to my point, I'm looking for industries that are not the same ones that everybody's going after, but I want to find smaller niche industries where somebody has a great product or service and it's working well. They got a handful of customers they've been able to serve well and got good testimonials, but they're looking to grow that and get out to more and figure out how do we find the rest of this market. I want to invest either, you know, mainly it's time and money, right? Because they're really the same thing, but I want to invest in helping those companies really grow and get out to the market that they're after. And I think what I've learned through this whole cold outreach process is I've put together a system to be able to do that, you know, but I wouldn't want to do it for just, you know, this huge industry of real estate agents, right? That's too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Awesome. Well, yeah, if anybody's listening, man, that you got, you know, you meet those requirements, get in touch with Martin and see if that's a good fit. But that's awesome, man. I mean, it's awesome. You mentioned a couple things here. I mean, I'll just go through it a little bit because that was an amazing little run there. I mean, mentoring. You mentioned, you know, mentoring, you know, younger artists, younger DJs, you know, guys that are getting going that you know could use an opportunity. Teaching. Zooming in on that a little bit. I mean, you know, those two. Personally, what I found is that, you know, mentoring and teaching, you actually get better. You actually learn more and get better at what you're doing through doing that, right? Because you're kind of like crystallizing everything that you've learned, everything that you've done, like all those tours you did, all those things you did, all those headlining, you know, acts that you played with, all these virtual events. It all starts to sort of crystallize, and you start to see it more as like a whoa, like in retrospect, shit, these are the mechanics, these are the frameworks, these are the foundations, right, of the thing. And I think at the end of the day, we both know it's like everything comes down to foundations at the end of the day. It's all little tweaks and little unique things put on top of a foundation that's solid, right? So it's like it's really exciting that that's part of the scaling. It's kind of bringing people in and starting to sort of become sort of an agency where you're bringing in talent, you're you know, grooming them with the foundations that you've built out over these, you know, 20 odd years, and then you're putting them into these positions in these situations where they can thrive in this unique environment that you've created. I think that's incredibly cool, and just I think that's going to work out so amazingly. You're talking about curating, you know, entertainment experiences, you know, creating more, creating networks and communities essentially in a way too of, you know, you're creating networks of corporations and event planners and people that are sort of in these spaces needing events, and then you're connecting them. So you're becoming sort of like your scale is sort of becoming a connector in a way of these different things, right? Because you know you're the person that knows the value proposition and the needs of the corporations and the event planners and all these people, and you also understand what it takes to be a talent in DJing and being an artist, and, you know, knowing how to play a crowd and knowing how to you know, all the mechanics that come in with DJing, right? That like people think DJing is just playing music, and it's like, whoa, no, like this is it's way more intricate than that, and there's all these dynamics going on. So I think that's really interesting, kind of the community building and the network building, and kind of being that middleman in a sense as a scaling opportunity. I think that's really, really interesting to look at. You're not looking at like hiring employees that then you're gonna who don't have any experience, or then you're gonna train, and then you're gonna, right? You're talking about actually like curating and bringing these things together. I think that's just awesome, man. It's kind of you know, one of the other guests that we had on the podcast mentioned something where he said it kind of stuck out to me that kind of applies here. Where he was saying kind of, you know, I'm building the systems. You know, it's kind of like I'm building the engine of the car, and then I can take this engine and I can put it in any car. You know what I mean? I can, like, once I have that found that modular foundation of kind of like everything that I built and the values and the whole thing that I have. I can just sort of take that thing and slap that thing in another car. And there's a couple little adaptations. I might need to like tweak a couple things, but that thing will run and it'll run super efficiently. And so I see that as kind of where you're going with the acquisitions, with the agency, you know, the kind of like entertainment, whatever you want to call it, agency that you're talking about building. Really, really exciting stuff, man. I think this is a really interesting thing for anyone that's listening. You know, you can think outside the box, man. You could do something differently. And you don't need to just do the thing that everyone else is doing. Because, yeah, everyone's going after real estate agents. By the way, they don't have money. By the way, they don't even have the damn money. You can go after property restoration, roofing, blah, blah, blah. But, man, these guys are, you know, I agree with you 100%. I used to go after the insurance industry, Martin. It was like, dude, these guys are just fucking assholes, man. I'm like, God, I don't want to deal with this on a daily basis, man. This is worse than the music industry. You know what I mean? So, but anywho, yeah. So that really interesting stuff, man. I want to, I think we can start sort of wrapping up if you're cool with that. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I want to let you get on with your day, but I definitely want to give another shout out that anyone that's listening, man, if you're getting some traction with your business and you're looking for some help and you could use a mentor and you could use some sort of, put that rocket fuel, put that car engine, you know, in that thing and soup that thing up a little bit and get some nitrous oxide in your business, man. Martin is looking for opportunities here to find, you know, talented entrepreneurs that, you know, he can invest in and help push you forward. So if that's you, get in touch with him.
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's just at DJ Graffiti, right? That's me everywhere. If there's a DJ Graffiti music, I want to know about it because I'm actually, should I say this too loud, but I'm waiting for my trademark to come in after all of these years. Waiting for the trademark for DJ Graffiti to come in. But I am DJ Graffiti at DJ Graffiti everywhere online. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, you know, whatever it is, I'm at DJ Graffiti. The only place that I am not as of right now is on Twitch. And so I'm DJ_Graffiti on Twitch. And that was one of the things that prompted me to get my trademark, kind of go file, because I'm like, I want to be DJ Graffiti everywhere. And it's a unused profile that I want to claim. And the only way they'll let me do that is if I actually have the trademark to it and say, hey, you're fantastic, you know, squatting on my property. But you know, beyond that, djgraffiti.com, you can find me there. And then my marketing website is the marketing company is Overflow Marketing Solutions. And the website is overflow.com. So iwantoverflow.com. So yeah, you'll find me. Yeah, just reach out. I definitely, so I will say I'm, you know, protective over my time because I am focused on that one single goal for right now, but I am keeping my eyes open for those opportunities because once I reach that goal, that's when I'm going to dig in more deeply on looking for what I'm calling it, you know, digital real estate development, right? I'm looking for companies and exactly what you said about, you know, someone else said the engine, I got this engine right here. I can drop it into any car. I'm looking at it and I have two of those. One of them is the relationships that are getting built with the corporations and the people there that want entertainment and or event solutions, really anything in that area. Okay, that's one engine. And once I have it, I can plug in anything that needs those inputs and we're good to go. Yeah. The other thing is this outreach system. Right. So it's starting to work well and dialing that in and knowing, okay, cool. Here's how the CRM is going to connect with the email and we got paid ads and all of that is working and fine tuned there. I can take that and roll that out for any business that I think makes sense for that same kind of outreach formula. Right. So I just really encourage people to look at that like what the real value is that you have and what you're doing. As I was telling a friend who has a photo booth company, and he actually bought the photo booth company from me. I sold it to him and he's been having success with it. But, you know, photo booths were really, really popular at one point. Now they're, you know, a solid thing that lots of people have at weddings and graduations and stuff like that. But they're not as popular as they once were. So I'm telling him, keep your eyes on what's new that everybody wants. And it becomes the new biggest thing in the world. Because with the system that you really have is your how people are able to sign up and do business with you. You have that kind of streamlined for them to be able to sign up and you can close that business fairly easily. Then you have this team of people that can go out and provide services at events, and having a team that's trained and ready to go. You can plug any product into that and you're good to go, right? So like I would encourage you, if you're doing something that seems like it's kind of slowing down and you aren't getting as much traction, can you plug something else into the key value that you're bringing to the table and align that with something new that has that kind of jet fuel behind it, and then take off from there? Because that's really what happened. I already was the DJ, already had the marketing stuff, but then the pandemic brought virtual events to the table. And then that's how I've been able to kind of take off. It wasn't something I did. I was just prepared with those things and just happened to be at the right place when all of that came together.
I love it, man. I love it. And I mean, none of that would have happened if you didn't build those skills and have that passion over time and just put the work in too, though, and I think that's a lot of people listening, man. We get questions in the group all the time. It's sort of like, how do I build an offer? How do I do these things? It's like, man, do what Martin did and just get out there, man, and do something, and just all the experiences that you had, just to reflect on it was amazing, man. That, you went through, school and law school, you did all these things. It's like you've done so much in your life, man, leading up to this point, that it's incredible to just, once you have that engine and you get to that point. And it's crazy because I know like a lot of the resources that are available now weren't available, when you were a kid. They weren't available when I was a kid either, you know what I mean? And there was just a lot of trial and error that was going on like all the time, you know what I mean? And just struggling and stuff. So, utilize the resources that are out there now and really try to, just get out there and take action on shit, man, and just do stuff.
Yep.
Because there's just so much opportunity these days. It's just unreal.
For sure. Take that imperfect action. I've never been good at that. I'm a perfectionist. So I always like to dial something in till it's absolutely perfect. And then you put it out there and find out it's not perfect anyway, even though you thought it was. But you spend that time. I think what's happened and I don't know what changed that up until now, is that I'm finally able to take imperfect action. I just do something and throw it out there and see if it works and then iterate on it. Right. And you've been a huge inspiration to me with that, and I've said that to you a couple times. I've seen how you start with something small and keep building on it and making it bigger and larger. And then finally it starts to realize the vision that you have for it. Right. I remember I was one of the first 15 people in the group. Definitely. Right. And now there's hundreds of people in the group. Right. And you morphing it into something new. So it's like, you just have to kind of start where you are and keep building and growing and just being able to have that stamina is a huge reason for success, is like to keep going with it until it becomes what you have in what you had the vision for in the first place. Until it gets there. Don't worry about if it takes detours along the way. Just stick with it and keep growing it and keep putting that effort in and force it to get wherever it's going to go. As long as not like, I mean, that's right. And what you said too, I think you had some failures, like when you, because I know it's the curse of the artist or the musician or the art, that artist in our brain. Because I'm the same. I'm a total perfectionist. I mean, with the music, I'm a crazy perfectionist. Like I run over, like I'm mastering for like weeks. I can't no, it's not there. You know what I mean? But it's like, like a lot of those failures when you take it to market, and the market will tell you where it needs to go. Where's the right thing to do? What's the right? You kind of need to there is a bit of like letting go with anything, right? It's like you need to start somewhere, you need to put a bunch of work in, you just do something scrappy that works, that's functional, and then see what the market tells you, because the market might go, dude, this is gold, or they might go, I don't know, what are you trying to do here? What is this? You know what I mean? I don't see what it is, so and I think that's in your career as well, kind of like where you've ended up. It's it's a bit of, like you said, the luck, with the with that formula for luck. But I mean, I think it's just, you've had those experiences where you quote unquote failed, you know what I mean? And you've sort of felt like, wait a second, this isn't for me. You know what I mean? But when it kind of catches up with you, you know what I mean? Something catches up with you, the market shifts, something changes, and then you see that opportunity like clear as day all of a sudden, when like before you would have never, known or never seen that opportunity before. You know what I mean? You kind of let life happen, let the thing happen a little bit. And it goes back to what you were saying, like take step one first and take step two next. And
it's so easy to go look at step 100, dude on step 100 over there up in the clouds. You know what I mean? And go, God damn, what am I doing? You know what I mean? But it's just like shit, man. You just got to take those steps one after another, and that's the way, I think. So, you're a great example of that, man.
Thank you. And as we get out of here, I do have to jump off of here, but just like you said, you were talking about, I failed in the past. I fail all the time right now. Right. Like, I mean, that's the whole idea of the imperfect action piece is that really I'm doing 10 things, right? And 2 of them will hit. The other 8 still fail. Right. So that's just the way it is. So the more action you take, the more likely you are to find those ones that are actually going to hit and give you some results. And then you can build on those results and grow from there. But I mean, I just sent out, I sent out an email a couple weeks ago so I don't need to give the backstory. We'll just say I was promoting a virtual event that I'm throwing, and I sent out an email of a list that I had pulled, and somehow a glitch happened where the mail merge didn't happen right. So everybody got an email that was addressed to me. It actually said, "Hi, Martin, blah, blah, blah." And then the email was, it was my name in there, and somehow something else was like personalized to me. So when I sent the sample, like the example that you tested, it came to me and it had my name in it and it looks fine. But then I sent to 7,000 other people, and this was more of a mass email than a small, a cold, individually small batch email. But I sent to 7,000 people, and I'm wondering how come nobody clicked through? And and I kind of burned that list. I tried to email it again, and I just know the numbers aren't right, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to let that one go and just move on. But I'm failing all the time right now, but in the past, that might have discouraged me to just be like, I gotta leave this alone. But because I've been so focused and doing this and doing like before I said I had 7 different things, now all the 7 things that I'm doing are all pointing to the same one goal, right? So as long as 1 of those, 2 of those things hit, it's moving that goal forward, and we keep moving, right? We keep the ball rolling. So thank you so much, Alex, man.
Great way to bookend it, Martin. Thank you so much for being here, man. It's at DJ Graffiti on all the social media. It's djgraffiti.com, if I remember correctly.
djgraffiti.com. That's it.
And it's iwantoverflow.com if you're looking for the marketing agency, see what he's been up to, in the past. So, dude, thank you so much for being here again. And I wish you the best of success. And hopefully we'll get to do this again a little later on when you're a little, down the line on everything, and kind of catch up again. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. See you, Martin.
All right, man. Peace.
All right. I really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Always Building. If you want to learn more about Always Building, our community, our membership group, and exclusive webinars and trainings and discounts on software and all kinds of fun stuff, get help along the journey so you're not all alone, go ahead and check out alwaysbuilding.io. That's alwaysbuilding.io. And again, thank you so much. Best of luck on your journey, and you just let me know. You can reach out to me on Twitter or via email, alex@alwaysbuilding.io, or at always_building on Twitter. Okay, thanks again. Have a great one.